What about us in India? I've often argued that soft power very rarely emerges because of governments. It often emerges despite governments. That's been true of the IT industry as well. You folks succeeded partially because you got ahead of the curve before the government of the day had figured out a way of regulating you. And then, fortunately, they realized that you were actually a huge asset to the country. In the process, we can celebrate the synthesis between the creative energies of talented individuals and the social capital of the nation. In today's information era, countries already being incessantly judged by a global public that's fed an incessant diet of news and views, of televised images on the internet, of cell phone videos, email gossip, all sorts of communication devices telling us the stories of various countries, whether or not the people of those countries concerned want the world to hear these stories. And in this era, technology, and particularly information technology, is the space in which India could successfully leverage a vehicle for its own soft power. Indians, of course, are now more and more perceived around the world as science geniuses. Pick up any sitcom of the younger generation, it'll have at least one stereotypical character being portrayed as an Indian science or tech geek. In fact, when I was living in America about 10 years ago, there was a very successful show called ER, Emergency Room, set in an American hospital. But when it first came out, the first couple of episodes, people liked it, but the critics panned one thing. They said, it's completely unbelievable who's ever seen an American emergency room without an Indian doctor. And so they actually had to write a part for an Indian doctor, played by a British Indian actress now, and then the show went on to become a long-lasting success. Similarly, today, you can't really describe the technology world in America without a part for an Indian actor. And we're seeing this more and more in American popular culture, which has produced unexpected openings for young Indian American actors as well. Today, we all know that Americans in Silicon Valley speak of the Indian Institutes of Technology, the IITs, with the same reverence that they used to accord to MIT. And the result is that the Indianness of engineers and software developers is taken as synonymous with mathematical and scientific excellence. And the result is, therefore, that India as a whole gains in terms of respect and influence. Now, sometimes this has unintended consequences. I love telling the story of my good friend from my college who, like me, had done a humanities honors degree, history, I think it was, and he was in Amsterdam, Schiphol airport one day, and found himself accosted by an anxiously perspiring European saying, you're Indian, can you help me fix my laptop? Can you tell me why my laptop isn't working? I mean, the assumption always is that the old stereotype of Indians, when I first went abroad to study, was of snake charmers and fakirs lying on beds of nails. Now the stereotype is that every Indian must be a software guru or a computer geek. Now, the continuous creation of knowledge, its effective dissemination, and its adaptation and adoption for driving economic growth will be the key drivers in our efforts to use technology as a vehicle for India's soft power. I'm happy to learn from Minister Patil that the Government of Karnataka already has a vision to take Bangalore from its current position as an IT hub to the next level of becoming a hub for global innovation and R&D. This is entirely doable. Your city already employs almost 50% of India's research and development talent and houses nearly 400 R&D institutions. So it should logically be at the forefront of our efforts to transform India into a global hub for R&D and the seeding of new technology. While working towards creating a knowledge economy, we need to first create a knowledge society. The increasing importance of knowledge creates both a challenge and an opportunity for our country. Technical education remains a significant tool in our efforts towards greater economic growth. While we celebrate the IITs, which have almost single-handedly created a distinctive brand India in technical education, driving our global legacy to unreal heights, to utilize the abundant talent in the field of technical education and meet the growing demand, we've gone beyond the IITs. We've established 5 new ISERs, Indian Institutes of Science Education Research, 8 new IITs, 16 new central universities, 10 new NITs, National Institutes of Technology, 6 new R&D biotechnology institutions, and we're aiming to produce another 20 triple ITs, Indian Institutes of Information Technology. So all of this, with a new flagship scheme for higher education, the Rashtriya Uchchata Shiksha Abhiyan, to support the state governments in their efforts, all this will help us consolidate our past efforts and provide new momentum to the absolutely vital sector of science and technological education in our country. Now, educated professionals, especially technically trained Indians, have long been India's greatest export. This is because our workforce is young, dynamic, strong technical managerial skills, and despite the warnings of cultural pessimists, we actually possess social values that recognize education, thrift, and hard work as critical ingredients of material success. While lower costs were the initial attraction towards India, it's the current skill set of India's workforce, particularly our engineers, who have improved in their ability to contribute to innovation. That's what's inspired multinational corporations to find their way here. That's why companies like GE and Philips and IBM have more researchers here in India than they do in their parent countries. Talent is abundant here in India, and we are frankly amongst the top 3 scientific manpower-producing nations in the world. Our people adapt better to foreign surroundings, assimilate easily into cultures which are not our own, at the same time have deep respect for the customs and traditions of other faiths, and are educated in English, which opens far more doors than our counterparts whose education is in other languages. But still, I want to keep these bright people here, servicing the world from India rather than exporting their talents permanently to foreign countries. So let's look at Karnataka alone. According to the Karnataka ICT Group, KIG study, 2020, they say that by 2020, it will become the largest collection of talent in a single location on the planet. With 20 lakh IT professionals, thank you, about 60 lakh indirect employment, and exports worth 4 lakh crore rupees. The corresponding numbers today are 9 lakh, not 20 lakh, 27 lakh, not 60 lakh indirect employment, and 1.35 lakh crores rather than 4 lakh crores. So we're talking a dramatic exponential increase in the next 7 years. This, of course, is already more than the combined numbers of Chennai and Hyderabad by a wide margin. So it's thus our duty as the government to utilize this greatest resource endowed to us, our human capital. Inspired by this prospect, we have spiritedly moved ahead towards this direction. After all, we have 17% of the world's brains, so there's no reason why we should produce only 2.1% of global research output. Our Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, has already declared the ongoing decade, 2010 to 2020, as the decade of innovation. Set up a National Innovation Council at the start of it, and we've created a roadmap to harness our capabilities in diverse fields like health, education, agriculture, urban and rural development, energy, water, climate change, and so on. Now, with a remarkably young population in India, the government is committed to acting as a catalyst in its efforts to break barriers and seize new opportunities, to push for innovation in ways where we can make the best of the human capital and natural resources which we've been endowed with. Apart from innovation, the Cabinet passed the National Information Technology Policy this year that aims to increase the revenues of IT and ITES industry from $100 billion today to $300 billion by 2020 and expand exports from the current $69 billion to $200 billion by 2020. But to turn this into reality, we need to make the Indian environment conducive for investment of capital from abroad. Now, while all of this is important to ensure that technology is leveraged as a tool for our soft power, it's crucial to increase the level of interaction between the industry and academia, be it increasing opportunities for students to work on live projects, increasing the number of summer internships, conducting training sessions, for example, for students, collaborating with universities to leverage the available research facilities, maybe going to a university and saying, look, if you will have a bunch of students research this and this, we will finance it. We have no problem with companies doing that. We need to see you doing much more of that. tap into the resources of the universities. Many of the companies in this room have already started doing similar things, and it's also crucial to drive this to the level of other towns, tier 2 towns and rural areas. Now, if you go and Google the expression frugal innovation, your first 20 hits will all be in India. So we've become the world's past masters at frugal innovation, doing things, stripping them of their expensive accoutrements, doing it simply, cheaply, affordably, fast, often created by necessity, and trying to solve our local problems that way. There's some great examples: Dr. Devi Shetty's cost-cutting cardiac treatment, the Jaipur foot prosthetic for people who've lost their limbs, low-cost effective technology in medical treatments, the world's cheapest insulin, the world's cheapest TB vaccine. All of these are coming from us. Government laboratories crowdsourcing discoveries of cheaper drugs, the cheapest mobile phone calls in the world, the use of palliative drugs used in my home state of Kerala for use for people who really have no hope and where good healthcare services are not available. So many examples. I mean, we can go on: the cheapest water purifier, the Tata Nano, and all of this is really frugal innovation.